Hi, and welcome to Aspire. In today's video, we're going to be talking about estimating, specifically a work order overview. In this video, you'll learn how to create a work order opportunity, understand the different types of work order invoice types, and last, discover how to win a work order opportunity. We'll catch up with Tyler to see how it all works.
So here we are in our Aspire homepage, looking at our dashboard. We talked about the various modules a little bit, and hopefully by now you're kind of starting to get familiar with a few of these. Remember, we're gonna go into our properties. Everything kind of starts at the property level as far as estimating goes. And estimates or bids in Aspire are known as opportunities. Because we look at them as like an opportunity to get that work or perform the work, and hence the little trophy icon there. And remember, there's two types of opportunities. Last week we talked about contracts, and today we're going to talk about the other type, which are work orders or your one-time jobs. And work orders can be as simple as, a simple hand watering, where you're going to just go out to a property and water some trees and shrubs or something, or some flowers, and then be done, code that complete, send the invoice out. Or they can be large install jobs that go on for months or maybe even years, depending on how large they are. We'll get into a few different types of invoicing that you have the option to select from. But let's dive right in here to creating a work order. So again, we're starting off at the property level, and I'm just going to go into here to one of my properties. This is what the property homepage looks like. We've got our property name here, followed by the address. You can see that I'm the account owner. We've got our primary contact set up. If this is a residential house, but if it was part of a commercial company that was either the property management company or the owner, you could have a company listed there. And then if we scroll down, you'll have all of your opportunities that you've done with this particular property down here in the middle section. If there were any site maps or anything like that, you could get those uploaded. It's specific for this property, for instance, irrigation plans or maybe mow maps, things like that. You could upload directly to the properties. That's kind of a nice as you're building out your system in Aspire, getting those things populated in Aspire so that your crews are able to see in Crew Mobile can be very handy. So I'm going to start off here, just create a simple work order. Starting from scratch. And so you can see we've got a few different things down here from previous sessions, but right now I'm going to start from scratch here by clicking my new opportunity. Now your system may or may not have some bold folders down here below. If you have any templates saved, you'll likely have these bolded folders. Those are your divisions and which template is saved to each division. So if I click into my maintenance, if you remember last week, we talked about contracts, and I have a few different maintenance contracts saved. If you don't have any templates saved, you're likely not going to see these, and you're just going to have new contract and new work order to select from. So today, remember, your work orders are what we're talking about today. I'm going to click new work order. And again, similar to the contract, we have some fields that are required, and those are shown here with the red asterisk. And so those are going to be the information that we have to fill out in order for us to proceed to creating the estimate. But there are a couple other fields that I want to touch on that are also very important to selecting. For instance, invoice type is not required because it's automatically going to have one of the four in there. But you're going to want to know the difference between the four and choose the select one before you create your estimate. So I'm going to just say for this example, we're going to talk about fixed price on completion. So I'm going to just name this landscape additions. Now you likely wouldn't have this second part here, but since this is the cohort session, I'm just going to leave this on here for my purposes so I can distinguish between the different types here. But you would have, if this was a tree install job, you could, this is a client facing field opportunity name. So you could put tree installations. I'm just going to keep mine at landscape additions. Feel free to type whatever it is that you would like. The sales rep will auto populate to the current user. If it's someone other than the person creating, they'll have to click the drop down and select the correct salesperson. Division. This is pulling, since this is a new work order, this is pulling from what we have set up in the administration area. So real quickly, if I come down here to my settings and I go into my administration, remember it's going to open up this new window. This is where everything kind of gets, this is the back end where everything gets set up. A lot of your puzzle pieces, your homework, if you will, in Guide CX will have you in here quite a bit. But if you come to the pencil icon, you'll notice that we have our default divisions for work orders set up to enhancement. So that's where that's pulling from. It's as simple as that. Just want to show you real quick where that comes from. If you want it to go to another, maybe construction division or something else, you can change that to whatever division you want defaulted for new work orders. So next, notice you have an operation manager. If you have your ops manager is generally the person who's going to be scheduling the work or involved with lining out the crews and managing the job. That person, select that. You can assign tags. People get very creative with tags. Just depends on what you want. It's a simple naming tool for work orders or for all opportunities for that matter. For instance, on your contracts, you could use a tag to label a contract multi-year contract, or you could do, if it's a 3-year contract, you could have a tag that says 1 of 3 and then 2 of 3 and then 3 of 3, things like that. Like I said, tags are customizable. People get very creative with tags. Your due date field here, if the client needs this bid back by a certain date, you want to include that. It's not required, but if you do know a due date, or if you live by due dates and you have reports set up or maybe a dial set up to pull information for tracking purposes by due date, you want to make sure that field is entered. Anticipated close date is when we expect the client to sign off on this work. So if you know that it's likely a go, you're creating an estimate for a client that works with you a lot and they basically guaranteed and you expect them to sign off on a certain date, you can enter that in. The start and end date, this is one thing that's different between a contract and a work order. If you notice, say we're going to say, if we get this job and the client approves it and we win it, we're going to start next Monday, the 16th. Notice how it auto populates 30 days out. That's just because different from your contracts, we recommend contracts having a start and end date that are on a 12-month period, no longer. And work orders are going to generally be smaller. Besides if it's a large job that goes multiple years, that'd be a different story. But generally, work orders are a lot smaller time frame, and so therefore it auto populates 30 days out. Now, if you happen to know that it's going to take longer than 30 days, and the end date, you can certainly try to put a different date in there. You don't have to. The start date is really what matters. If you're going off of your schedule board lists and searching through your work tickets for work tickets that are with an anticipated start date of this week or this month, things like that. Your start date is what's going to be what that's going to go off of. Or maybe you have a list that says, work orders that need to be completed by the end of the month. In that case, you could then come in here and set your end date by the end of June or whatever, and you can say the end of next month, whatever it is. So it's not super important, but just know that it is customizable there. If we were using a template, it would show here. Since we started from scratch, there's no template, but I will show you how easy it is to save a template. Similar to our contract, it's up under the 3-dot menu when we get to that point. If you know that, if there's a budget here or that you're trying to meet, you can enter that information in. Estimated dollars will show up once we build out the estimate so that you can see from this screen here just generally what the estimated dollars are. These fields here are for sales tracking purposes, your lead source. Was it a call in? Was it a referral? That kind of thing. Probability, if you're tracking, your salespeople are using probability, or they can have it set up on their dashboard dials, those kind of things or your sales reports. In this case, it's a new sale. Like I mentioned, your invoice type, we have 4 options, 3 of which are fixed price options. And then we have time and material for our work orders. So fixed price on completion, I'm going to start with that example here. On completion, notice we have T&M on completion and fixed price on completion. That is stating that all the work has to be completed in order for us to invoice. So if there's multiple work tickets within the same work order, all of those work tickets need to be completed before the invoice can be generated. These other 2 options, fixed price on a payment schedule and fixed price open billing, are a little bit different in that fixed price on a payment schedule, you can set up a payment schedule. For instance, you could ask for a down payment. You could do, you basically set up a payment schedule to your liking and then make certain % of the work complete before the invoice can be generated. So we'll get into that later on. Fixed price open billing is basically, this has to do with the schedule of values. So you can invoice for whatever amount, whenever you want, as long as it's within the fixed price. So generally, fixed price open billing has a schedule of values. Some people refer to it as progress billing, if you're familiar with that term. So these are larger construction jobs, design build firms will get into fixed price open billing a lot more commonly that require schedule of values. If anybody uses a pay app, this would be, or the AIA layout, this would be the selection for you. Thank you, Tandra, for the pro tip there in the chat. So let's get started here. I'm going to use the fixed price on completion invoice type, and a couple of things to point out. Similar to our contracts, we have our proposal description 1, proposal description 2, opportunity invoice notes, and estimator notes. And so if you recall, description 1 is going to be our scope of work. So you would not type this out actually, but this is going to be our scope of work. So maybe you have tree installations surrounding the perimeter of the property, something along those lines. And you'll see that when we get in here, I'm going to, you can go further into depth on the scope of work. We're going to do it as an example here. We're going to do a tree installation using a service, and then we're going to split it up into 3 separate work tickets, which is it's different from the contract in that you can have the same service multiple times. On the contract, you can have one service one time. So you wouldn't have mow, trim, edge blow twice on your contract. You'd have to have a mow, trim, edge blow, and then either B turf mow or C turf mow or biweekly mow, something like that. So that's the difference between work orders and contracts on the service level. Proposal description 2 is going to be your terms and conditions. And so If you wanted to set this up and have, set up a template and have your terms and conditions saved on the template for a specific type of work order, whether it's a construction work order or, maybe you do some masonry work or that kind of thing, hardscape work, you could have a template set up for your hardscape terms and conditions, or maybe irrigation has different terms and conditions. You can tailor those to each type of service or division that you would like, and save that on your template so that when you're starting from scratch, you click new opportunity and you select the template you want these terms and conditions pull through for you. Opportunity invoice notes. This field is somewhat rarely used, but if you have any specific information that needs to go on this particular opportunities invoices, you can enter those here. Your estimator notes are going to be internal notes. So maybe you met with the client and they give you some specific information on start date, or just specific details important for the estimator to know. You can enter these in here and they will display on the estimate screen here that I'll show you. Once we have kind of everything filled out here, we can go up to our 3-dot menu in the top right and create our estimate. Notice you do have the option to upload files for this particular work order. So we had it at the property level that was information for that entire property. But if you have, if this work order was for a design to install some plant material that's following a design, maybe you wanted to upload that design to this work order. Just know that that's an option as well. And if you do upload that, you can select the file type, whether it's a plan or a picture or whatever, and then you have the option to attaching it to the invoice as well. All right, I'm going to create the estimate. And once again, we're starting from scratch here. So we've got our group header at the top. And then if you recall from last week, the next thing down below our service group header is going to be our services. So this is where we're going to select our service. And for this one, I'm going to show you how you can enter in, like I said, this miscellaneous construction service. And notice we have once again, our prefix CON. That tells me as the estimator that the revenue for this job, for this service, is going to go to construction. And so if I click in here to this service, miscellaneous construction can be used multiple times. And I can click in here and change this to whatever I want it to display on the estimate. And it'll still retain the same service. So just because it's displaying something different doesn't mean it's changing the service. So I'll take a step back and build this out a little bit more and show you what hopefully this will kind of bring everything together. So under my miscellaneous construction, I'm going to click into here to the header and rename this real quick. Tree installations. We've got our miscellaneous construction service. And so remember, once we have a service listed, we can't actually go out there and perform the work until we add items. So similar to our maintenance contract, we can't go out and perform maintenance services without our items. Items starts with an I. I think of it as ingredients to go out there and perform. So if this was a recipe, all your ingredients to actually make that recipe would need to be listed below. So one important thing is going to be labor. Let's see, construction labor. And then I'm going to add some trees, some autumn blaze maples here. I'm going to add some mulch. And I'm going to stake these trees. So I'm going to add some tree stakes. And so there we go. I added one of each of the things, and then I can go back in here and adjust the hours as needed. But first, like I said, we're going to have 3 different phases on this job. So I'm going to have a front yard, a south side yard, and a backyard. And so I'm going to show you kind of from a shortcut here as you're building this out, how easy it is to estimate within Aspire. So if I click in here, I want to change this. This is customer facing, so they don't really need to see miscellaneous construction. My point of using this same service here multiple times is to show you how you can, on a work order, use the same service multiple times and display the name differently. So in this case, I'm going to do 3 separate work tickets. So I want to make sure that since I'm using the same service, if you want separate work tickets generated, you need to have this checked. This service name override or abbreviation override. This is gonna, if I didn't put anything in here, it would probably show miscellaneous construction on in schedule or scheduling module and in crew mobile. And so in order for me to distinguish so that this job here, 959, opportunity 959, if I didn't put anything in here, it would have 3 separate work tickets that would all say miscellaneous construction. So I'm going to override the abbreviation and name it similar to my display name. If you wanted to add a description specific to this front yard work, you could put that in there. And then it would show just for this first portion. Anytime you make a change like that, make sure to click save. But now, if you right click here in the white area, you'll notice that you have copy or delete. So I'm going to copy this. Remember, this is our miscellaneous construction service. We're using it 3 different times. I'm going to copy it again. And now I'm going to go back and click in here, and I'm going to say this is going to be our south side yard. Once again, I'm going to change our abbreviation. Anytime you see abbreviation, that's what is going to show in Crew Mobile. So, mobile device, smaller screen, that's going to be a little easier to see if it's abbreviated. And then same thing on the schedule board. When you're scheduling out work tickets, you have those visit plaques, and the abbreviation is what shows on the visit plaques. So we've got our south side yard. I'm going to click in here and change this to our backyard. And here we have 3 different, this is gonna end up generating 3 different work tickets because we had that checkbox checked. And then, so we're thinking of this as 3 different phases of this one job. Since we used the same service 3 different times, had we not checked that, it would just combine all of these hours together into one work ticket. So now that I have my 3 different phases set up, I'm gonna go back in here and kind of fill out just throw some numbers in here. These may or may not be accurate for estimating purposes, but just to continue to fill this out and create a real life or somewhat real life example for you. Let's see here. I'm gonna actually change this tree. Let's add so on this south side, there's not going to be autumn blaze maples. I just right clicked on it, deleted it, and I can click in here and add. I'm going to add some green giant arbs. Let's say there's 20 of those, 7-footers. Now my pricing here is just pulling from what I have set up in my markup. You may have pricing set up, you may not yet, but we'll get to that in a completely separate time. It's covered in the money bag area. Let's see, what else do I have? I need some stakes and some mulch. So you can see once you have the items added, if you know that generally each section of this job is going to have the same labor and then mulch and tree stakes, it's kind of nice to do that shortcut of copying, and so you don't have to type in each item in each phase of the job. Does anybody have any questions on this as I'm continuing to fill this out here?
If I wanted to change the price, for instance, on the front yard, the dyed mulch, how would I change the price? Right now it shows $49.77. How would we change that price per yard?
Yep. So this is our fixed price on completion. So the pricing is coming from our administration in the money bag, which is what is pulling through here. If Casey's pointing out, if you click in here to this box, notice you can click in here and override this price. Maybe you want to charge $60 a yard. You can simply click in there and change it. If you wanted to see what your cost was, you click into the service and you can see that our unit cost is $28. And so now we're charging $60. So we click back to our estimate. That's one way to change. If it's higher than what your markup is, it's going to turn green. Let's say maybe you got a deal on mulch or whatever for this job, and you can charge $45. It's going to be yellow because it's lower than what your system is set up for markups. But know that you can override the pricing on this page. And then to get back to your standard markups, whatever you have set in your system, just delete it out and it'll go back.
Cool, thanks.
All righty, so here we have our job set up. We've got 3 different phases. If we collapse some of these, we can see it a little cleaner. We've got our header, tree installations, front yard, south side yard, backyard, and our totals for each of those, projected gross margins. Over here you can see total overhead break even, net profit. You may or may not have net profit set up for your company right away. It's totally fine. Your markups may be completely different from my example here. Totally fine. I'm simply in my test system, and so don't expect these numbers to pan out. More importantly, just want to get the fundamentals down of how we create our work order, add our service, add the various items underneath the service, and then realize that it is possible on a work order to add the same service multiple times. And it could be something as simple as that miscellaneous construction, as I pointed out. All right, so now everything looks good here. I don't see any zeros on this page here that I see. Let me see, make sure I've got everything. All right. Our test system's a little funny. I think in my example that I'm looking at on my other screen, I used maybe one of these other mulches that's maybe at a little bit different price or something. So that's why I'm just double checking, but we'll go ahead and roll with this and come back over to our opportunity screen. Notice we're in a bidding status now. Similar to the contract, this has a workflow to it. So you can see that if you hover over the audit trail, it'll say that it was created today. We're in a bidding status. We're going to come up here and complete our estimate. And it's going to go into this approved status. Now, it is possible to set up some parameters for your estimates. For instance, this is totaled out at $21,405. So maybe you have a threshold of 20,000, or maybe it's something lower like 5,000 as you're just starting out. Maybe you have anything over 5,000 needs to be reviewed and approved by either your branch manager or somebody within your company before it goes out the door to your client. It would then move into a pending approval status instead of approved. And then you would, once it is approved by your branch manager or president or whoever, it would then go to approved. Approved doesn't mean that the client approved it. This just means it's approved and ready to go out the door, as I mentioned. And so now that it is, we'll come up to our three dots and we can either print it or email it, similar to our contracts. And we'll want to click this drop down here and make sure that we're selecting, if we're going to print it, we want to select this is a work order. So we had our contracts last week, and make sure you're selecting style 1 or 2 of your work order. And as I mentioned last week, one of your homework items in Guide CX or your puzzle piece tasks is to get your layouts submitted. So you want to make sure to come in here, look at style 1 and style 2, and just see how they look. And if there's something, for instance, if you don't want to show this per unit price column, make sure to cross through that and so get that submitted. Anything that you want to change up on here, get that submitted to our team so that they can get going on that. I think there's a couple week turnaround time, 10 to 14 days on that. So the sooner you get it in, the better. And then you can get that back, hopefully by the time you go live or before then, so that you can, so that when you do go live, you're ready to start working right away. If we just take a look here, you can see that we've got our 3 different phases: front yard, south side yard, backyard, and everything that goes into those. We have our terms and conditions. Obviously, yours is going to be a lot lengthier than what I'm showing here. So your signature line would likely be closer to the bottom here. You can see proposal 959, customer, the primary contact for the property. Their information is going to show up here. Property information is going to show over here. Your scope of work from proposal description 1 is going to pull through right here. And then your separate phases. So if we wanted to go check out style 2, take a look at that. Style 1 had a couple boxes at the top. Style 2 is just a little bit different. Doesn't have the boxes. A little bit cleaner look without as many lines. So you'll just want to make sure to check out both style 1 and style 2 and pick one, and then make your changes and get those submitted. The other option, like I mentioned, is emailing the proposal. So if you wanted to, if your customer was set up in your system with their email, you could email that over. They could sign it electronically if this is checked and you're set up to do that. Your subject line, anytime you see these brackets, those are tokens, and so you can click in here. If this magnifying glass, if you click into this, you can see all the various tokens that are available that pre-populate based off of each individual opportunity. So in this case, we have proposal for your review. It would say opportunity number 959, and it would say landscape additions for the opportunity name. It's just pulling that information in automatically. If you wanted to attach this as a PDF to your email, you could do that here. Make sure you select the right style. And then the body of the email also has a couple, notice it also has a couple tokens. You can click in here and add any additional verbiage that you would like before you send it, or maybe you wanted to add another token of some sort. You could add that here. This, the wording here that's already set up is all set up on the backside in admin. But if you wanted to email this over, you could click send. The client reviews it, approves it. If they sign it electronically, it would notify you that it had been signed, and then it would be won. So if they don't, if you print it out, meet with them in person, you would then come back to the office and win it. And so another thing to keep in mind is just creating those SOPs, those standard operating procedures for your company on what that looks like, who can win them. If you don't want everyone and their brother to be able to win opportunities, you want to make sure to have those roles and permissions set up accordingly. So now you'll notice that once it's won, we're now in production. And so you hover over the audit trail. These all happen to be today because obviously we've done them all today, but generally there'll be some time gaps in here, and you can see who did what with their initials. Anytime a work order is won, those will generate work tickets. So if you come up to your three dots after you win a work order, you'll have the opportunity to look at the work tickets. And so here you can see, even though we use the same service, miscellaneous construction, we had that checkbox checked to do individual work tickets. And so we've got three work tickets that can then be scheduled on different days, or maybe prior to winning, maybe the customer said, I just want to do the front and backyard. Let's wait on the south side yard. You could then revise, delete that out, revise your work order, and just have your front and backyard. Another benefit of breaking that out, two separate work tickets. So you can see our total, we've got 87 total hours, and then the breakdown for each. We would then schedule these work tickets on our schedule board. We'd go out there and complete the work. And as if the front yard portion was completed, we could not invoice just yet, even though this one work ticket would be completed. We'd have to, because this is fixed price on completion invoice type, all three of these have to be completed before we can invoice. So that is kind of fixed price on completion in a nutshell. We kind of spread through that fairly quickly, but does anybody have any questions on this particular invoice type of an opportunity? I'm not seeing anything. So let's go back to our property, Swift Residence. And I'm going to show you what the other invoice types look like. I'm going to come in here, and I've got kind of a cheat sheet for myself. I'm just going to take this one and copy it. So if you have an existing proposal that maybe is a little outdated, and you presented it in the spring and it's now fall, and you're meeting with the customer says, hey, I know I didn't have the money to do that job in the spring, but it's been a good year, and I'm thinking I want to do that this fall. You could come in here, copy it, update your pricing, and then resend that out. So it's as easy as clicking into the opportunity. In this instance, it's a work order. Come up to your three dots and go down to copy. You then have the chance to change properties. For instance, if you're doing, a work order for something like hand watering or something, and you create one work order for hand watering, and then you're gonna copy that to multiple properties. This is kind of a shortcut for that. People use the copy function for all kinds of things. But if you did want the latest and greatest costs and pricing, takeoffs, that kind of thing, make sure those boxes are checked. I'm going to leave it on the Swift Residence and just copy it. Oops, I don't know why that's giving me trouble, but there we go. And so now I just copied it. It has its own, it has a new opportunity number. up here, 960. If the start date changed, in this case it did, I can click today. And then we'll just go ahead and say, you know, if this gets approved, we can get there next Monday again. Again, it will pre-populate 30 days out from now for the end date. We'll leave that alone. Notice our division, because we copied that other job, we had already changed our division to construction, even though in administration we have it set up to default to enhancement. That is just because we already made the change and saved it. And so we're not starting from scratch. We use the copied version.
Now that we've taken an overview of the work order, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.